reality and understand that is the Jewish land, and that the people recognize their responsibility in the world, that's a giant thing. It's giant. It's so important because now they're recognizing what they are. So this is a very great thing that happened here. I'm very excited about this. I hope the American elections go well, and that people, as we've talked about many times, Noachites have a responsibility to make sure their country is going in the right path. And hopefully a democratic situation means if the people get out and say, we support a way of living that is proper, that is what has to happen. It's happened now in Israel. Great news. And as the verse says, the Torah comes out from Jerusalem. And I hope, God willing, in America, in election day, 2 days from now, also people will get out and say, we can't be living in a world that is counter to God's will. Just can't do it. Can't accept it. Can't be part of it. Okay, so that's the good news from Israel I want to start with. Now, I want to go on to one thing that we're in the finishing. We had the Parsha of Noach. It's moved into Lech Lecha. It moved this week into the story of Abraham. But I want to talk a little bit about Noach and what happened, because it's very relevant to what's going on in the world. And somebody who's in the group asked me about Noach a little bit. And was Noach a tzaddik? Was he a righteous person or not? You hear some different stories about it. So I want to explain a few things. First of all, Noach, it says in the verse, was a tzaddik, right? It's what it says in the verse. The verse says Noach is tzaddik, is a righteous person. Tamim he was pure in his generation. Okay. Now, one of the things that was crucial about Noach, which is an aberration we need to discuss again, is it says Noach was a tzaddik, he was a righteous person, and that's something that's called in the Jewish writings called Shomer HaBrit. He guards the covenant. Now, what covenant are we talking about here? Something was happening in the generation of the flood that was very, very bad, and it's happening today in the world, and this is why you got to vote to get this out. It's not acceptable. And I want to explain what this is a little bit. It says the animals were having relations between different species, the people having illicit relations between animals and inappropriate things. They were not controlling their physical desires and having inappropriate illicit relations. Now, I want you to think about something a second. What are the two greatest physical pleasures in the world? If you think about it, you'll be it's very fascinating. The two greatest physical pleasures in the world are physical intimacy, right? Man and a woman, and eating. People like to eat. Those are great physical pleasures. We all like to eat, and intimacy. If you think about it more deeply, you realize that both of those tremendous pleasures are both built on the sustaining of life, right? When I eat, I can live. When I have intimate relations, I can procreate. I can create life. That's very significant. Those are the greatest pleasures, and therefore those are the places that are most easy to pervert. God gave us a place where this ability to create life through eating and through procreating, he made it pleasurable. He didn't have to make it pleasurable. Think about it. What happens if God made it that your food tastes like sawdust? You'd still have to eat, right? What happens if he made it that physical relations were unpleasurable? You just have to procreate, keep going on. And yet, he put the greatest pleasure there. Now that means that this is a place that is powerful. And therefore, it's no accident that that is the place where people go and corrupt it more than anything else. We eat gluttonously, we eat out of control. And the generation of the flood was taking the areas of their physical pleasures of illicit relations, of where they could have built and created, and misused it completely. Noach is called a tzaddik, a righteous person, that he guards what he is. Let me explain this more deeply. It's fascinating. The deepest part about the person, if you think, what is the most godlike thing that a person could do? It's actually to help create another person. Is that crazy? God gave us an ability, and every tree, if you look in the story of Genesis and Bereshit, every tree, it doesn't describe much about the tree. It says God made it liminehem, to their species, which means that every tree had in it the ability to produce another tree. Every species had the ability to go and to produce another type. That is built into the system to create life, to expand that. And that's why, by the way, there's a law that you're not allowed to crossbreed things. You can't take, a donkey and a horse and breed them. The mule is a sterile animal, because you're not supposed to take them, because what happens is, if you do that, if you take, let's say, an apple and a plum, and you crossbreed them, you don't have an apple and a plum. You have neither. So God created every single creation with a purpose, a unique purpose in the world. And Noach maintained what he was. The people of his generation were out of control in this area. And they were doing all the things that they were literally illicit relations all over. That was their main thing. It was mentioned last time. And I bring this up again because we're talking at a time where the world, if you look at the world, there is a loss of the concept that we are something and we have something we have to do. People are all over the place. And therefore, in illicit relations, they're all over the place also. And that is the story of the flood that happened. And that's happening right now. So we have to do, as I said, it's election time. We have to also get out and stand up for people being like Noach. Noach, to say that the human species has what they have. Animals have what they have. And everyone has to be true to their root, to their essence. Okay. Now, so is Noach greater than Abraham or not? That's an old question, people say, right? The text says that Noach is righteous in his generation. So some people say, well, in his generation he was righteous, but in other generations, not so much. And some people say, well, no, it depends. He was great. If he had been in Abraham's generation, it'd be even better. Now, I want to just explain this a little bit here. Some people think that Noach was not so amazing. And it's not true. Noach was a great tzaddik. He wasn't as great as Abraham. But I got to tell you something. Have you ever fought the entire world by yourself? No. Nobody here has stood up and said, this is the right thing to do, and I don't care what you say, I'm doing it. We're all social animals. You walk into a social situation, the old thing, if somebody walks outside and 10 people are looking up to the sky, and you walk out there, you're going to look at the sky too, because we are influenced by our society. And therefore, to stand up like Noach did, and like Abraham did, is very unique. Now, but Noach was not in the same level as Abraham for various reasons I want to discuss. And this, I'm sure you've heard this. We talked about it before. Let's just bring it home because it's all relevant to what's happening now, what we need to do. So it says that the verse in the prophets calls the flood the waters of Noach. Wow. That's a pretty dubious honor to have a flood named after you, right? It's like, wow, that's great. Wow, the flood's got my name. That's not a very good thing. So why is the flood named after Noah? So the sages tell us because he didn't pray for his generation. What does that mean? It means he didn't care? He obviously cared. He rebuked them. He said to them for a long time, listen, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. But there's a point where Noah said, okay, if God judged them that they're not worthy, that's what they got to get. It wasn't like I didn't see that movie, and I hope you didn't see it either. There was a movie a couple of years ago about Noah. I didn't see it, and I hope you didn't see it, because people told me it was like they painted him like this crazed guy who was all angry. That's not what it was. He tried his hardest for years to get his people to do the right thing, but he said when God judges them that they're not worthy, there weren't 10 righteous people on to do. Abraham had a different view of the world. Abraham is called Av, a father. Abraham means Av Hamon Goyim. He's called the father of many nations. Abraham looked at himself as the father of the people. And he said, I know they don't deserve it, but I got to find something. As we talked about once, when he prayed for Sodom, what a crazy thing. He's praying for the evil people. How do you explain that? And I told you this once before. I want you to remember this. It's very, very crucial. He was not praying for bad people to stay bad. That wasn't his prayer. His prayer was that if there's goodness in this place, then that could shine out to everybody else. And that's really the way you're supposed to pray for people. You're not supposed to say, oh, there's a bad guy. Yeah, good. Let him keep going. No. The prayer is that if he's got an ounce of good in him, then let that be brought out and let him change. Abraham prayed for Sodom because he said, if there are a number of righteous people, that means there's a seed of goodness in this place. And that's what he prayed for. And that's why the sages tell us, really, even though it looks like it wasn't accepted, it was accepted because God did take, how I don't want to get into the mystical things, how he did it, but took the souls of those people and brought out whatever goodness eventually brought out from them. So Abraham has got a different view of Noah. Noah does what's right. He's a righteous person. He guards what's right. And there's a rule, there's a law. And you cross the line. Abraham is the father of the people. He's the Avraham, Av among them. He's the father of the nations. He saw himself as the parent. If the parent, I want to tell you an amazing thing. It's like the story of in Noah when he sends out the bird, right? You guys saw that. It's a very strange story. He sends out the raven, and the raven doesn't want to go. Then he sends out the dove, and the dove does go. Why didn't the raven want to go? So the sages tell us that the raven is a cruel animal. It's the only animal that's cruel to its young. When the babies are born, they're not that dark as the raven. And therefore, the parents don't believe it's their child. They don't want to feed it. And the Talmud says that there's mosquitoes, there's bugs come out from the feces, and the babies eat that. So the raven has a certain quality that it's hard for the raven to, whatever this means, to find the good in something. And Noah sent out the raven to find, was there something good to build the land off of? And that's what the raven didn't want to go. They didn't want to see that. The dove is always compared to loyalty. The dove is true to its mate. Okay, there's certain types of dove. It's called the tur in Hebrew. The tur, which it'll only have one mate for life. A fascinating law in the Torah and offerings, where if you're going to bring this two types of doves, you only have to bring one. You should not bring the one that only has one mate for life, because then you'll take it away from its mate. So the certain types of dove only have one mate for life. It's loyal. I want to ask you guys, what does it mean to be loyal to somebody? You're married to somebody. How do you stay loyal? If you marry someone, you say, well, this person is not who I thought it was, so how are you loyal? If you say this person was that, but there's something totally different, what are we loyal to? What is loyalty? What does it mean? So let me explain to you, there's an amazing word in Hebrew called compassion. Rachamim. Rachamim. People misunderstand what compassion is. Compassion means the following. When a mother is compassionate to the child, she goes to the parent-teacher meeting. The teacher says, your kid is a disaster. The mother says, what are you talking about? You don't see this about my kid and that about my kid? Now, the mother may be delusional. Sometimes that happens. But what also happens is she sees the good in the child that the other people don't see. That is compassion. Kindness means I give you kindness no matter what. Judgment, I judge no matter what. Compassion means that I see the goodness in the person, even though you can't see it, and that's what I always notice. And that's why the Hebrew word rachem, compassion, is the same root as the word, is the same word as a womb. It's called a rechem in Hebrew. Because you don't see, there's nothing there. Well, there is a baby there. There's a child, there's a person there. The word rachem, compassion, if you flip the letters around, you know what word it spells in Hebrew? It spells the word machar, which means tomorrow. Why tomorrow? Because the mother sees the tomorrow. That's what she sees. She knows the kid's not perfect, but she sees the goodness in him. That's loyalty. Loyalty means, let's say a couple's in a relationship and they're going through a hard time. But you see in the person what it is that you loved in the beginning, even if it's being hidden, even if it's confused, even if they're going through a hard time, you see that goodness and you want to pull that out. You're loyal to what you saw in the beginning. There's the seed of what the person is. That was the dove. So Noach then sent the dove because the dove was that other level that it was looking for the point to build the world on, to see what was good. That is, as I said before, the Noah situation. Noah as a human being, very righteous, but he missed that next level of Avraham. Avraham's level is, I am their parent, and I'm going to see the good in them, and I'm going to pull the good out, and that's what he did. Avraham is a very unique person in the sense that he was the first person to come to God with his mind. Avraham, by the way, in the Jewish writings is called the great philosopher. Why? Because he said, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. People worshiping idols, this doesn't make sense. I need to think about what's happening. And he thought about it until he realized there has to be a God. And when he thought about it, it says that God appeared to him and says, yes, you understand. You understand. And now that you've done all your human effort to make this a reality, now God reveals himself to him. Then Avram spent his life going and feeling that responsibility to share this with other people like a parent. And that's why it says Noach was very righteous, but he couldn't go in the front. He kind of was like with God, and God had to Abraham ran out in front and said, okay, this is my job in life, is to bring God into the world. And that's what I want to give us the idea today, what we're doing. Every single one of us has to go and lead the way to make a difference in the world. You can't sit on the sidelines. This is really, there's a battle going on between positive and negative. It's a real battle. And there are philosophies that are being spewed that are totally bad, totally wrong, totally against the Torah. And we have to know that. We have to say, okay, I have to try to speak to people like Noach did. I have to pray for them like Abraham did. But I have to go and stand up and say, this is what's important and this is what's meaningful in life. And now it's happened in Israel. It's a good first step. It should happen in the entire world, that people should stand up and say, there is a creator in the world. As I said to you many times, so much of this negative woke reality is based on the idea that we are God. There's not a creator, a omnipotent, beneficent creator who created the world and is moving it towards a purpose. And there are boundaries, and I stay within those boundaries. In Noah's generation, they broke all the boundaries. Today, break all the boundaries. And therefore, we should have a blessing to be able to stand up, be counted, and take back our countries in the world to be like Noah and like Abraham, who are going to go and to help rebuild the world, find that goodness, and try to find it in people. I mean, it's hard. People sometimes are at a level today that I've never seen. I've never seen the level of inability to speak to people today as 10 years ago and 15 years ago. It's unfortunately shocking. People have this big thing with, I was thinking about it yesterday, they had this big thing about, Elon Musk buying Twitter, restoring free speech. Okay, I think it's noble, but there's something else that I want to add to you about this. And this is important. Whatever your political positions are, it's important to hear, even if someone is wrong and you disagree with them, it's important if you could find something that you could see good in them. Maybe they could hear you better. So I was thinking about it, and they had this idea of like, Elon Musk says, and he's right, that they're censoring people from their opinions. It's clear. I mean, I don't get too much of politics, but a lot of things that were that very recently were like conspiracy theories. You couldn't say them are now known facts. So there's censorship of doctors and this and that. So the other side will say, well, let's open up free speech. And I hear that, but I want to put one caveat. And in Jewish law, this is crucial. In Jewish law, even if something's true and negative, you're not supposed to say it. Okay, I'm not saying that in Noachides have to do this to this level, but the concept you need to do. In other words, let's say I know a person he did something, I don't like him. It's not a good thing to go and to announce it. So I haven't answered anything on a social media platform in years. I did once because one of my students said I should, and then people started saying their opinions, and they were talking. It was fascinating because it was like people started opening a mouth to me like they would never do as the rabbi. Now all of a sudden they're on Facebook, so I could say, well, I want to now. Well, I'll get my anger out. So I was thinking yesterday, I think I got to call up Elon Musk and tell him, I have a great rule for you. Freedom of speech, I agree. But you know what? I think the first thing you should do when you respond is say something good to the person who made their comment, even if you disagree with them. Even if you think it's wrong, how about this? I appreciate your passion for this thing. I think it's totally wrong, but you're very passionate about it. The person's going to hear you a million times more. And unless you're talking about a really evil person, which unfortunately there are, when you can't really, there are some, unfortunately, but most people in your orbit are not like that. But really evil people are, okay, it's different. But generally speaking, the people in your orbit, you have friends, you can have relatives that have different opinions politically now, and you can't even talk to them. So I find something good. You might disagree. If I start out with, a person says something that I think is absurd, and they say it with real vigor. So I wrote my first response to somebody. I said, "That's a very thoughtful thing that you said, and here's what my opinion about it." So I've already complimented it. It's not a game. It means finding the positive, even if you disagree, because that's the way the world used to be. I had an opinion, you have a different opinion. Now, a different opinion, you're terrible, you're racist, you're this, you're that. That's the way the world is today. But if a person could actually, have the freedom to say their opinion, but say it in a positive way. You're not gonna get, even your free opinions when they're combative and they're negative, you're not going to change anybody. I've never seen. It's like at my Shabbat table. people after speaking words of Torah always feel good. If they're speaking politics, nobody feels good. It just doesn't work. It doesn't happen that way. So when you want to talk to someone, do the Abraham, do what Abraham did. What Noah tried to, and he wasn't able to pull that off fully and to defend the people like Abraham was. Find something that you could acknowledge. It should be something, and then say your opinion, and then maybe they'll hear you better, and you'll understand, even if they're misguided, that there's something there that maybe you could work with. So that should go now from Israel to the rest of the world.